Hello, everybody. This is James Diboe, discovering dedicated to original peoples. As always, we got a special guest on. This is brother's got a wealth of knowledge dealing with the cosmos. He's aware of indigenous knowledge. The ancient wisdom and knowledge, the consciousness. Allow me to give a big welcome to Mr. Rod Hayes. How you doing, my brother? Peace.
Hey, how's it doing? Peace, peace.
Great to have you on. I've been watching a lot of your videos on like Black Magic 363 and some other. I've been been catching up with you, and I'm one of them type of people. Me, I reach out to people. Doesn't matter where we are in the world. We are global people, as we know, and we're all facing similar problems. And there's very few of us that are trying to connect to this deep knowledge and wisdom. So, first of all, I want to start with you because I've watched your videos and I've seen a lot of things that I'd love to ask you about this. Like I say, I'm going to deal with the beginning now. So when I say the beginning, we listen to things like scientists. Oh yeah, first people came out of Africa 200,000 years ago as modern humans, but then they go back into all this hominins and Australopithecines. And I mean, for me, I don't really deal with all that. I just focusing on the modern, and then also I can connect to the spiritual before that. What do you recognize as the beginning? And we talking about our beginning.
So because of the cycles that are layered on top of each other, to get back to the beginning is it's more mathematical than it is archaeological. It's
Okay.
it's a formula that is being seen by nature, right? So like when we see Fibonacci sequence in nature, and we see the signs of pi in nature, and we see platonic solids manifest in nature. This is all physics that nature is using to give us the reality that we call three-dimensional reality.
Yeah. This is that's all we see in the 3D. Totally understand. So where do you see us like us coming from the beginning? Do you see us like, well, we came from another realm and we went in this physical, we was in more in the higher dimensional place? Or do you see it as like how some of the scientists kind of teach it, Western science, where, we start off with something in the water, later on with evolving, evolution. So you more, where would you say where your focus more is?
Um, my view would place me on the fringes of modern science,
Okay, yeah.
because if let's take the evolutionary Darwinian philosophy of the microorganisms that came from the sea that moved on to the land that became reptiles, mammals, and other species of animals, right?
Yeah.
Who put the first active cell into play?
Okay.
You see, so even
Yeah.
if you use in the Darwinian evolutionary paradigm where you evolving from smaller creative expressions, microorganisms, then you have your two-cell organisms, and then as you move up, you end up with multi-billion cell organisms like us and elephants, right?
Okay.
As in the creative paradigm, source would be the cause of all existence. Source is bigger than three-dimensional because three-dimensional fits within the paradigm and framework of source energy. We are trying to understand in the 3D world what fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth dimensions look like, feel like, taste like, smell like. Well, we leave three dimensions, none of these things matter because everything, you are a body of knowledge when you in your light body. You become a body of ignorance when you take on a human body. So your light body has to be so powerful that it keeps your heart pure while you learn how to navigate the obstacles of life on Earth in the 3D. So you go from supreme knowledge of the God form of the inanimate self to becoming an ignorant child that can't take care of itself. And then you go through all of your life to end up to be a senile adult that can't take care of itself. Right? So we're looking at cycles. When you understand that everything is in cycles, then you know that eternal beings live these cycles in order to have something to do for eternity. So all of the creative aspects, the creator gods, what we call the feminine, divine feminine gender is the creative God, acquiesce to the ruler gods to maintain the balance of the physical realm. When they fail, the creator gods have to come back into the physical form to recreate a new reality because the ruler gods made mistakes and ruined everything, disrupting the natural balance of nature within the paradigm of the human. So then the creator guys gotta go over everything that they did for the last 26,000 years or so and say, okay, none of this working. Start, reset, recalibrate, go back to the beginning. So when we talk about the beginning, every 26,000 years, we go back to the beginning and start all over.
So it's like the Mayans, like people talk about the Mayan calendar. From the Western perspective, they were kind of speaking like it's the end of the world. Now, at time in September 2012, I went over to Mexico to meet the Mayans and all that. And he just said it's just a new beginning. Just a new beginning. Another cycle. Yeah.
Yes. It's just like when they was Y2K. Y2K was the prerequisite to understand what it means to come to the end of the Mayan calendar. Because they came to the end of the date that was programmed into the computer. So what did the computer do? They expected the computer to glitch, but all it did was reset to zero.
Okay.
And kept performing as if nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
Same with the Mayan calendar. So all of these cycles, the more cycles you break out of the paradigm of, the more free you become. We are trapped in racism, sexism, gender bias, homophobia, pedophilia, all of these opposing paradigms that don't serve us, but we let the society and the mainstream that believe they know more than the individual steer the individual to a path of his own destruction. We trying to keep up with the Joneses, but the Joneses is trying to find out who they is.
Yeah.
Right. So when we realize this, we say, hold on, well, wait a minute. We don't have to keep up with the Joneses. We can do our own thing in our own lane, and we don't have to worry about what the Joneses doing in their lane, because if they swerve over here, we just gonna bump them back to their lane. Right? And now that free you up to be a creative being within the 3D paradigm and manifest your best life. That's what we're here for. We are here to try to figure out how to manifest our best life.
Yeah.
That's because the manifestation of the best life is the accurate reading of the book of life.
Now,
everybody comes in with a book of life.
Now, when you see manifesting, we see a lot of this new age stuff nowadays. And you got books like The Secret. You've got a lot of new age kind of teachings where you see like books like The Secret, things like that as in new age teachings, or it's actually compatible with the ancient indigenous knowledge.
So they never tell you in The Secret, because I read the book like 6 times, like, well, they never told me what the secret was.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point.
So all of these the keys to manifestation is the self-realization and knowledge of self that's required for you to tap into your higher mindset. The human mind, the computer system is based off the human mind. The RAM is your short-term memory. The hard drive is your long-term memory. And your infinite memory is the cloud. You have to fill up your hard drive, overrun your RAM in order to go straight to the cloud to get your information. When you get into the cloud, that's when people start calling you weird, strange. He's kind of awkward. He's not like the rest of us. There's something wrong with him. No, there's nothing wrong with him. It's everything right with him. It's just that everybody else got something wrong with him and they don't want to accept that reality.
Yeah.
So when they see the strange, the weird ones, the ones that's slightly off, that's a little bit outside of the paradigm that they've been given, they don't fit in the box. They can't put him in none of the boxes. I can't check that box. I don't apply. No. Yeah, he's some of that, but not all of that. But he a little bit of this, but not all of this. So he don't fit in the box. Now the Agent Smith effect kicks in. You know, the people come out and lash out, come up against you. He don't know what he talking about. He crazy. He's psychotic. He's delusional. And all of the things to challenge your intellectual stability and to determine if you firmly rooted in reality or if you departed from reality that they call insanity. But if the whole world is insane, the sane person look like the crazy one.
Yeah, definitely. Now, interesting thing, what I seen you speaking on last time, Credo Mutwa, some of the knowledge the brother has. And I remember you mentioned about, because I was always interested, a man called David Icke. I remember you mentioned about him being sent over there to take his work and put it into a curriculum. Now, interesting. I mean, I've gone to actually see this man live as well. And some things like I listened to him watching for like 8 hours on the stage, 9 hours or something like that. And you try to get as much as you can from someone. And we spoke about Credo Mutwa a lot. We like as if he was a student of his or something. But I don't know if he got that far. So do you feel like he exaggerates? He puts his own spin on Credo Mutwa's knowledge, would you say?
Everybody that transfers information before the information is transferred have to adjust it to the paradigm that they can see.
Right, okay.
So no matter who you're getting it from, including me, we all put our personal spin on it because in order for us to be effective in communicating, it had to have something from us in order for another person to pick up on it in its full energy expression.
Okay.
So if David Icke tailoring Credo Mutwa's teachings to what he was already teaching? Absolutely. But was it what he already teaching that far removed from Credo Mutwa where he can't discover him after the fact and then use him for a reference that proves a point that he already made before?
Yeah.
So every teacher is going to teach it in a way that they feel can get the information across to the most people to have the biggest effect in order for the most people to see the anomaly they're looking at. But it's more than one anomaly to look at, but some people can only see the one. But some people can see two and some people can see 100. This depends on your natural talents and abilities and how you interpret information that you can make it understandable by other people in the same paradigm as you. So over here in America, we having a resurgence of realization that the ones they call African Americans was already here, even though we intermingled and mixed with Africans long before Columbus came. It wasn't until after the Columbus contact that we ever have something known as a slave system or doctrine of who we are. We didn't have that. We knew who we was before Columbus came, but after 1492, in many years of war, we end up being told that we were somebody other than we was by the society, which is ran by a corporation masquerading as a government.
Yeah. Well, you always wonder, like, it's the Moors that helped them get out to into the Americas anyway. And he didn't actually come to America. Columbus was the Caribbean, somewhere in the Caribbean.
Yeah, he landed in Hispaniola, which today is called I think it's Dominica, Haiti.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So he basically, when they came, and the story that we get told that he slaughtered the indigenous peoples. Now, when we say indigenous peoples, from their perspective, is it's the Eskimo Mongoloid type people. That's how they refer to it. The red man, or if they want to call, they have various different names, don't the Eskimo, red man, but now when we're dealing with things like the Olmecs, we can clearly see the African presence in the Americas way before, 1,000 years before Columbus. Also, people like Abubakari taking voyages from Mali, so there's many different, and that's just two migrations. There's many, many more. The people in the Pacific Islands came over as well. So I'm quite aware of different people coming into the Americas. Now, as far as what you just mentioned then about, do you, because I've heard different things what different people say. Some people say black folks have always been in America, and some say no. Some see it as a transatlantic slave trade. Some even see the transatlantic slave trade as a myth. I've listened to some of the Moorish teachings. So where would you say you stand on it, as far as the Africans reaching America?
We was doing business on the eastern shoreboards of North and South America with tribes in Africa and intermarrying into royal families from Africa the whole time we've been here, the whole time we've been in communication. But the communication was severed through the crusades of the Admiralty fleets. The Admiralty fleets was developed as the Moors was being exiled from Europe. The first place they went when they got exiled is in northwestern Africa called Al Maghrib.
Yeah.
When they went there, they couldn't stay there because they already been kicked out from over there. They have to find somewhere else to go. The Pope gave them the discovery doctrine, which commissioned them to conquer lands where other people was already inhabiting under the pretense that if they were not Judeo-Christians, they was not civilized. So because they not civilized, they incurred something called the white man's burden. The white man's burden was popularized in a poem by Rudyard Kipling about the Christian right to convert the pagans to the church. This was done under Constantine in the Nicene Council.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, most of us sleep on is that the Old Testament was written after the New Testament because they needed a backstory to justify the fallacy of the first story.
Yeah.
And then Islam was created by Catholic priests in order to figure out how to corral in using the principles of sociology to control the nature of the people from the land of fire, or of the Chaldees. So they need to figure out these hostile warring tribes, how do we get them all under one control measure? And they produced Islam as that measure. But Islam was stolen from the ancient worship of Allah that was common to the people of the land. And this is what made them use Islam and change Allah to a male to push the male chauvinist agenda and the disenfranchisement of women under the doctrine of religion.
Yeah, the patrilineal system, patriarchy. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting, because it's funny how you mentioned about like the time of 325 AD, Constantine, and so during this time now, say before this, the Conference of Nicaea, before this. So what did you see as the beginning of these religions? Now I understand spirituality has been here for way longer, and I wouldn't compare spirituality with religion, but as far as these religions, like what you call the Hebrews, the Torah, where did you find the beginning of all this?
It traces straight back to Babylon.
Babylon.
Traces straight to, because before you had the Bible, before you had a New Testament, the Old Testament, you had the Talmud and the Mishnah. The Talmud and the Mishnah was the text that the priest that was known as Hebrew priest at the time brought out of Babylon with them. Included in those documents, you will read these human sacrifice rituals, you will read the money magic rituals, and you will read the sex magic rituals, right? So it was 3 forms of conjure that they used to conquer the world. And it's Babylonian blood magic, Babylonian sex magic, and Babylonian money magic.
Babylon is modern day Iraq, as we're speaking on Babylon, modern day Iraq. Now, just before Babylon, we're dealing with Mesopotamia and Samaria. So Samaria, what I was aware of is that it was a black civilization, and supposedly they came from either places like Kemet, or Kush, around these places. So now sometimes people deal with this area, the Sumerians, as being the oldest civilization. Then I've had people like, have you heard of Dr. Ranoke Rashidi?
Yeah.
Now I've had him on my show, I've met up with him. He came over to my city, I put on an event for him. Now, one question I did ask him, I remember, whose civilization's older, Sumeria or Egypt? Now he says, of course, from his research, it's definitely Egypt. And then obviously you can go before Egypt, you have Nubia and other parts of Africa. But now some people use as Sumeria being older. Now, either way, they're both black civilizations. That's the main thing. So from your research, do you find like Egypt older than Sumeria, or Sumeria older than Egypt? Or as we call Kemet?
Egypt, first you got to know who founded Egypt.
Okay.
And then you need to know who founded Sumer.
Okay.
If you don't know who the founding originators was of those societies, we pick up on what we call pre-dynastic Egypt.
Yeah.
Thousands of years into their existence, right? Contemporary with Sumer. The oldest document that tells us about the origin of ancient Egypt is the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Many people think they're mythical teachings and that they're not real, but the information in there is undisputably accurate.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not accepted by modern academia as an actual document to date history. Because if they did, this would put the arrival of Tahuti from the Americas in Egypt long before the first of the dynasties and the majority of the pre-dynastic kings. In pre-dynastic Egypt, we forget there was kings that was ruling for 35 and 45,000 years.
Yeah.
But under the dynastic periods, they are the longest reigning, I think, was Ramses, which was like 81 years or something like that.
Yeah.
You see, so what are we looking at? We looking at somebody's trying to control the narrative, and anything that's belligerent to the narrative given is wrote off as fanciful, mythological, and far-fetching and far-reaching for the truth. But as soon as you start comparing the information in the document to the settlement, it starts to match up so accurately that you like, we can't just toss this out. That's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, well, interesting. I mean, because like I'm aware like Nubia is older than Kemet, and also people like Dr. Ben Yoshi Ben Yakin, speaking on the um, the Egyptians spoke that they came from the beginning of the Nile, where God happy dwells in the foothills of the mountains of the moon. Place right around Uganda. Beginning of the Nile. So I'm aware of like the maybe that I mean some people see these as like they were more primitive before the development reaching, but either way, we can clearly see Africa as the oldest civilization. Now, what I'm not interested in
No, that's
person,
not true. Africa does not have the oldest civilizations.
where so you saying that the Americas, was you saying?
The Americas has the oldest pyramids, the oldest Temple of Isis, which was the first seat of sacerdotal power, right?
Yeah,
It's the oldest. It's older than everything in Egypt. And it's the only thing that can reach back close to it is in Rafali, South Africa, in Manadapa, which they called in the Sumerian writings, they called it the Absu.
the old South Africa. Yeah, yeah,
Right. So that's the only, and it's also mentioned in a lot of the writings that talk about Atlantis, which is one of the foundational civilizations that all modern civilizations is built on. We don't realize that humans in the physical form is not the same when they're not in physical form. So we limit ourselves based on the limitations that the reigning or ruling society give us at the time. To
yeah,
break through the
yeah.
limits is to see that we infinite beings, we always been in existence, therefore existence always been here.
Right.
Once you
Yeah,
realize
yeah,
you're an eternal being, it takes the brakes off. If I'm an eternal being, what am I missing? Is the first question you need to ask yourself. How do a eternal being come into a finite world, right, and live a life and then go back to infinity, right? So you truth and falsehood. The falsehood is that the body is the true self. The body is not the true self. The body is the vehicle that the true self drive around in order to communicate to the rest of the people driving around in their earth rovers, meat suits, meat
yeah.
modems.
So basically, in the spiritual, we'll call it, you know, we're seeing things in the three-dimensional space, the five sense reality. So some of these pyramids that you're talking about in the Americas, now, are we speaking on these were built when we were in our spiritual form rather than our physical form?
No, they was built in the physical form or they wouldn't be in the physical reality.
Okay, now, when you say the Americas is older than Egypt or Sudan, you got pyramids in Sudan. So where do you find that? Like, I mean, which researchers do you find speaking on this? Only because most people usually agree that the pyramids in Sudan are older, well, predate Egypt by several hundred years. And the Americas, when you say the Americas, do you mean Mexico?
That's part of the Americas.
Yeah,
Also in
yeah, yeah,
Arizona,
yeah.
in Arizona is the original Temple of Isis. The
Okay.
replica, the replica was set up in Kemet, and then Rome set another replica up, and they called it Vatican City. Those are replicas,
Yeah,
right? It's also another replica called the Parthenon of Isis in France, but we call it Paris.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when you trace it back, the original is in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
And it's also the oldest, one of the oldest structures on Earth, let alone temple buildings.
So you know the
But see,
people, yeah,
the Grand Canyon, the
yeah,
Smithsonian is in a full-fledged effort to silence anything about the Grand Canyon in their artifacts, that many of what we believe came from Egypt actually came from the Grand Canyon in Arizona in the Americas, but they gave it to us as an Egyptian exhibit in their museums. But they know they didn't come from over in Kemet. They know that they came from the Arizona caves.
and then they've sailed, navigated to Egypt.
Right. So if they can control what you think, they don't have to worry about what you do. Miseducation of the Negro 101. You control the way a man think, you need not worry about his actions.
Yeah,
But when he started being an independent thinker, you can't control him no more. He's uncontrollable. Now you got to silence him before he started infecting these other people with something called free thinking and the ability to exercise something called free will. He's going to upset the entire paradigm that we laying down. So we're going to get rid of him, and we're going to create a whole government effort called COINTELPRO. And you think that it's only functioning in America because that's the CIA version. But what's the MI5, MI6 version?
yeah,
What's the Mossad version? What's the KGB version of it? All of them had the same effort to silence anybody who was speaking against the system.
yeah,
Now you got people inside tearing it down from the inside, speaking against the system in the high seats of office of the systemic governments. That's actually corporations masquerading as governments. So somebody gonna have to go in there and tear them down. So you have to assess the psychology of the people or the sociology, and then you send the person in that the people most likely to accept tearing it down. Because if they look like us and they tear it down, it's going to be a problem. But if they don't look like us and they tear it down, good riddance.
yeah,
Let it go. Because
yeah,
we've been taught that.
yeah. That's me being fed,
But
isn't it?
everybody that don't look like us ain't against us. And everybody that look like us ain't for us.
Yeah,
That's the hardest pill to swallow.
definitely. Definitely
Because
it
when I
is.
found out that the so-called white man wasn't white and they was darker than me, my feelings was hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So let me deal with some the energy and spirit. You know, I've spoke to a couple of different people about this energy and spirit. You know, like I try to speak the language of the person who I'm speaking to. For example, say if I speak to a scientist, you know, I might use the word energy more. You know, if I was speaking to someone maybe religious or spiritual, I'd use the word spirit maybe more so. Do you see it as like it goes hand to hand, energy and spirit?
It's it's just a different denominational description.
Okay, yeah. So, like I said, it depends on who you're talking to, and you're trying to get them to understand what you're speaking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, yeah, like we were saying about Babylon, interesting because you know there's many different places of civilization, mystic systems from different places and that. But now, when we deal with Babylon, what's the story of Babylon from the beginning in order for them to get this power, gain this power, and basically change the world as we knew it?
Look, if you go back into the dynasties of ancient Egypt, you find that there was a priesthood war. It
Yeah,
was called the Amun priests versus the Aten priests. The Amun priests wanted the concept of the inner deity of the individual concealed. And they wanted all of those who represented divinity among the ranks of humans to conceal themselves. So they wrote in Egypt what's known as the Amun spell or the Amen spell. That's why you say Amen after the prayer, because you're telling yourself that you don't want your God self to be seen. The opposing faction was called the Atean priests. Let your light shine into the world, Christ consciousness. Elevate your mind to free your soul and teach the others to do the same.
Okay, interesting. Right, okay.
Okay. Now, the warring priests use sorcery. These priests were women in the harem of the pharaoh, the male pharaoh. The only woman that had sway was the senior wife, who was given the jurisdictional authority by number 13, known as the Queen Mother, the mother of the king. It don't matter how many wives the Pharaoh took on, the only one that can tell him that he is not allowed to go to war, or he is the one that the Queen Mother give the heart key to. It's the only way I can explain it and make it simple.
Yeah.
She gives the heart key to the one she chose to be his wife in her stead as his mother, because his new wife is also going to be his mother, his confidant, his lover, and everything else. So her love for him have to be unconditional, just like his mother's love was unconditional when she brought him into the world. In modern times, mother's love becomes conditional if the child follows what mama said when he was young, when he get old. The problem is that the conditions that's placed on the love put restrictions on the self-expression and the ability to use free will. It's called browbeat. Browbeat you into walk in a straight line so that you can follow the system. Byproducts of the Amen spell. Now, saying that, we take you back to the book of Leviticus, where they tell you about a place called Ur of the Chaldees. This was Babylon. Ur was one of the major cities of Babylon. The dwellers in the city of Ur were called Chaldeans. Abraham was a Chaldean in the Bible, meaning he came from the city of Ur, major city in the land of Babylon. But he didn't get his birthright from Ur. When he crossed over the Tigris and Euphrates, and they said he's Ibri, meaning Hebrew, he crossed over. He crossed over the rivers, takes you back to what we call the temple rite. The temple rite is called the March Across the Burning Sands. Any Masonic brother listening know exactly what I'm talking about. The purpose of the march across the desert sands is to expose the righteous son to the heat of the sun to see if he thrive or if he succumb. Only once you've crossed the two rivers, right, do you become Hebrew, Ibri, right? Now you are qualified to be adopted in the priesthood after the order of Melchizedek. In Egypt, they weren't called the Tiger and Euphrates. It was called the Blue Nile and the White Nile, right? Now, it was still the same ritual, mirrored rituals. During this time that they come out as Abraham, they go back in something that's known as the captivity of the Jews. Anybody can look it up. It's not hard to find.
Okay.
They were allegedly in captivity in the land of Babylon for 400 years. This is the story. I didn't write it. I'm just reading it.
Yep.
Now, when they came out, there was no Torah anymore. The Torah was originally the rules and regulations that Abraham followed. So when you read in the Bible that Abraham was given the law, the Hebrew word is Torah. So Abraham, children go into captivity in Babylon. They come out with two new books, these two new books is based on what's known as sin rites, rites. Sin rites make all practitioners of these rites a sinner. Starting to get familiar with the church now, ain't you?
Yeah.
Okay, now, what are the sin rites? They were written by a Babylonian god known as Ninursin. They commonly just call him Sin, right? And Ninursin wrote a war protocol to conquer Earth using three forms of high magic: Babylonian blood magic, Babylonian money magic, and Babylonian sex magic. When he and his brother, one of his brothers, who was masquerading as Marduk, who called himself Marduk, the play on the name confuses the historian as to it being the same person when it's two different people. They do this on purpose because if you don't know the character of the individual you're defending, you will be defending the wrong character. So they got together under the direction of the commander of the fleet. We call him Enlil. In Sumer, he's known as Enlil. That's a title, not a name. But in Hebrew, they call him Yahweh. Right? And in Europe, they call him Zeus.
Yeah.
Same character, different languages, and the title that means the same is pronounced different in different languages.
Yeah.
You don't say president in Japanese. It's a different word for the same office and function.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, in order to rule Earth, there is something called the Earth Scroll that has the 10 keys to wisdom to rule the Earth. This was captured in the Roman conquest of the Himalayas when they went into the Indus Valley under the direction of Emperor Constantine. Right? With understanding how to control 10 key aspects of the life of the crowd, you can control them now. So after his conquest and capture of the scroll of governance, which is how to govern Earth, they said that he conquered the world. He had not entered Africa. Africa was known. He went into the Indus Valley. He did not conquer the Khans or the Huns at that time because he couldn't defeat them. So he went to the path of least resistance. He go to the source of the right to rule scrolls of the earth. This is why they built Rome. Right? Now remember, Constantine was a Greek. No, Alexander, my bad. Alexander was the Greek.
Yeah, some say Macedonian, but some, yeah.
Yeah, so he conquered on behalf of his father, Zeus, because they call him the son of Zeus. This is important because when we get another 1,500 years away, Jesus is going to be turned from Isis into the Son of God.
Yeah, yeah.
And Peter, which means father in English, is not the name, but the title of the seat held by the Pope. Right? So when Alexander the Great, which I call him Alexander the Fake, because he wasn't the rightful ruler of Greece, he took power from the rightful ruler. Most of us don't know that because we don't know how interlopers interlope. And as the son of Zeus, the son of Enlil, he is exercising the jurisdiction of the so-called God of Earth. Right? So now they use these tools. When Constantine comes to power, he sees what they call cults. Anything that's not Christian, Judaism, or Islam is classified as pagan cults. It don't mean anything wrong with them, but the energy put behind the expression in the English language made us believe that a cult is a bad thing. It made us think that a pagan was something bad. A pagan just means you don't believe none of this nonsense they telling us.
Yeah.
And that you know that there is a spiritual connection to the ethers and to the earth. And if you recognize that, that's going to open up the path of life for you. But if you deny it, you're going to struggle trying to find your way through life by having obstacle after obstacle slap you in the face. Being aware of that, you use it to control the people. You keep them so divided that there's no peace in his own home, let alone in his society or his city. And as long as that perpetual state of conflict there's a God and a devil. There's a right and a wrong. But these are just two acidity scale opposites, right? From acid to alkaline, which is also from order to chaos, right? From efficiency to entropy. The entropy, or the mass loss of energy beyond what's being expended, is in the struggle in the day-to-day life, more so in the one who's following the path and he's living at the highest echelons of life. But nobody want to teach the common man, because if everybody was living at the highest echelons, it would alter the reality and it would erase the concept of hell from the reality, because heaven would be on earth. So they took these scrolls and they passed them from the Greeks to the Romans. In Greece, the goddess Helen was who the culture, Hellenistic culture, was named after.
The name Hell.
But when Rome appointed a god named Helen, it was a man. That's called the severing of the head of Medusa, which is to take off and decapitate the divine feminine and replace her with the feminine masculine, artificial, a fake, a fraud, right? Something that looked like something, but it ain't even close. So they sent us the Statue of Liberty to tell us what was going on. We never knew that it was a drag queen until we seen the statue of Lucifer.
Right.
The big statue of Lucifer is older than the Statue of Liberty. The only difference is the Statue of Liberty has a dress on.
Okay.
The face is the same.
Yeah.
Right? So they telling us that we chasing drag queens, meaning men that's in women's positions, holding women's possessions hostage. What are the birthright of the women? The birthright of the women is to control the mitochondria, which corrects the anomalies in DNA over time. But before it can correct an anomaly, they're adding so many new anomalies, it's extending their time to be here by creating of chimeras that look like humans. They show it to us in those movies where they using all these different parts of animal DNA in order to increase the intelligence of the human. Never knowing that the human is the most intelligent of all the creatures, and that's why we humans. So we don't need other animals' intelligence, we need access to frequencies. That takes us back to the totem systems. To destroy the totem system, they instituted the flag system. The flag system is adopted from Admiralty and Maritime of the high seas and misapplied on the land because it's a different set of rules from water to land. Because the laws of land does not control water when you try to apply them to water. Dirt and water don't behave the same under scientific examination. So therefore, the one who's applying the law of the water and overriding the law of the land is the invader. And the one who gave them permission is who we needed to find, which we call him the Pope.
Yep.
And we needed to know who financed them, and we traced them back to Switzerland, and they classified as world banks and international monetary funds.
Yeah.
And now we need to know who gave the royal decree that took us to Buckingham Palace, and that's why the crest fell off the gate. That's when Lizzie really died. Because it was the breaking of the crest that reveals the breaking of the crescent, which is the moon magic, which is the spell of sleep, which is the Islam spell.
Wow. Yeah.
So this is why you got to do salat all day. As long as you're doing salat all day, you can't live. You can't live a productive life, and every time you get in the middle of a project, you got to go stop and kiss some guy's ass.
Yeah.
So it puts you into a dream state. That's Kingu. You always dreaming about what life could be like, but you never go about doing things to make life be like you dream it. So you living in another person's dream, and this is why your life is a nightmare, because it's not your dream. If you choose to live your own dream, then your own dream, you can't have a nightmare.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So, because now everything is beautiful around you. You coming from the true place, the place of the love, the unconditional love. And let the love light shine. It's like a lighthouse on the harbor. What do Pharaoh mean? The light of the house. But the gender term of the word is feminine. She is the light of the house, wherever she may be, because she is the light in my heart. I don't have to take my woman to war. When I go to war, my woman in my heart with me. And she know that I'm going to fight until there ain't no fight left in me. So it's all the balancing of the two energies and the opposites and the rising to prominence and power. What we see written in hieroglyphics is the holy drama. The holy drama tells you the blueprint. But if you're not an architect, you don't know how to read blueprints. Therefore, how are you going to construct anything? Right? But once you read the blueprint, you can look around, and then you can take the true blue and imprint it up on the reality in order to bring about the rise of the new Messiah, which means the blessed ones, the anointed ones, the ones smeared with the oil, the gator oil, the crocodile oil of the Sobek priest, right? Because that's how you determine who the rightful heirs was. Over time, it gave way from the elixir of the oil of the crocodile to the oil of the whale to the olive oil, right? Color, and it's the replica of the thing that captures the energy in the mind of the gods to manifest that this is the right one, right? So we learn by observation of how things are going to see what's right and what's wrong. And if you standing in the path of righteousness, you're gonna always see on one side the wrong and the other side the right.
So see with them.
You got to walk the middle path to see them both.
Okay. See, when we speak about religion now, you see some of the practices within religion. I'll give an example. Fasting, you know. So not just fasting, there's something, you know, some don't eat pork. there's quite a few things. So see the positive side of things. 'Cause fasting, they say it's quite good. It's good for us all to fast at certain points, you know, cleanse ourselves and stuff. So see some of the positive practices. Is that what would you say that's what attracted people? Like certain things that were familiar. How did you get a bunch of
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
Yeah,
So what they was using, even in the stories that they
yeah,
telling the stories and then they mixing the story up.
okay. Because I wondered how would you get a bunch of people, so many people, into
Um, um,
this?
I can tell you exact because once you know how it works, it doesn't work on you anymore.
Yeah,
So this is how it works. They took the stories from the hieroglyphs and reworked them. You have something called genetic memory. This all it is accumulated DNA code that goes back to your furthest ancestor. But all of the ancestors between you and that one of them is sending the children out to collect the knowledge, and they all culminate when he come back to get the downloads from all of the other ancestors.
okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
it started off at a point, then it's a divergence, then it's a convergence, and then it's a unison. All of the ancestors collectively will choose a descendant to reveal the information that the collective family lines is fed into the bloodstream through DNA data.
Yeah.
All we doing is upgrading and updating the avatar by exchanging information and using reproductive processes in order to pass that information down until it's time to act on it.
So see, like Noble Drew Ali, for example, because if I look at, even though Islam might have been like 1400 years ago, I look and like see certain things, like see with Noble Drew Ali, Elijah Muhammad. So I understand that it became a black liberation movement, but at the same time, there's a lot of things tied in with Islam and possibly with Noble Drew Ali. Maybe there's other things from the Bible that he's connected with, or I don't know a whole lot about Noble Drew Ali. I'm just aware that he established the Moorish Science Temple, and some say he was an influencer of people like Farad Muhammad. So,
He
so
was
we,
a he was a contemporary of Farrar Muhammad. He was a contemporary of W.E. Du Bois. He was a contemporary of Marcus Garvey. They was all doing work at the same time, but doing different work.
yeah,
Sweet Daddy Grace, Father Divine. But here's the thing about Noble Drew Ali. Noble Drew Ali started off, he said, as a merchant marine. That means that he was traveling harbors around the world working as a longshoreman. Then when he came home, after a couple years, he went to New Jersey, and as he was about to go through his tribal right, he had to find out who was holding the people hostage. When he went into this place called the Moorish Zionist Temple of Jews, he discovered the use of the Babylonian magic system to oppress the people. He created the Moorish Science Temple to counteract what they was doing and to expose to the rest of the chiefs who may not be alive yet who's behind it. Once you know who's behind it, you study their methodology of how they move and how they operate, and then you look to determine if you see any of these things, how they move, manifesting in the society that you're living in, that would either prove or disprove their involvement in what's taking place.
okay. And then mean,
When he used the structure, the original structure of the Moorish Science Temple was a whole different jurisdiction than the modern Moorish Science Temple.
yeah, yeah, I was going, yeah, the modern, yeah,
Right now, under the jurisdiction of the original Moorish Science Temple, anybody who had a nationality card the Grand Sheik would come in, and you can't try him in your court of law. He's not in your jurisdiction. He's in ours. Somewhere along the line, somebody crossed Noble Drew Ali out and put them under the jurisdictional authority of the oppressor. This also caused him to be murdered in the process.
Right.
Okay, now, at the same time this is going on, there's some people that's accusing Marcus Garvey of defrauding them through the mail. All this going on at the same time in 1920s.
Well, Garvey, I mean,
right?
Big time, brother. Yeah.
Remember, they exiled Garvey, I think it was 1926. They murdered Noble Drew Ali in 1929. And the stock market crashed. Do the math.
Yep.
They created the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. Right? No, that was not the Federal Reserve Act. That was that was the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. Right? Yeah, this gave the rise to the central bank.
I was just going to say 1913, around them times, was this the time when the stock markets crashed? Was it?
The stock market crashed in 1929, the same year Noble Drew Ali was murdered.
Right, okay.
Muzaffar Muhammad appeared in Detroit in 1930, 1 year after Noble Drew Ali died. Now, you got to pay attention to the timing.
Definitely, yeah.
Now, Claire Muhammad in 1929 is sending her eldest boys to go drag a drunken Elijah Muhammad off the train tracks. Right? And while he's recovering in 1930, a silk salesman come to his door. Fard Muhammad.
God in the person he called himself, isn't it?
Right.
If you continue what you're saying, but if you could explain the God in the person from your perspective, but continue what you're saying, but we could add that on as well.
It doesn't mean what it sounds like it means because it's a Masonic code.
Okay.
Because we don't know the language they speak, the language that we speak is going to be our default to what they're saying.
Okay, so what does he mean by
he came with a message? He came with a message directly from the one who's the God of the earth. A direct message, right? Which makes God come in the person. Not the person is God. The person carries the message from God.
Okay.
Right? And the reverence given confuses the masses as to the person's purpose, which allows them to go unmolested through history to continue to carry the same message that God told him to deliver before he came to Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
Now, when you realize the codes, then you see the flip. Now, when you raise the white man to deific status, you're really raising the black woman on the other side of town. So if you look at where their first Nation of Islam temple number 1 was, it was on one side of town, and across town you had something being formed called the Shrine of the Black Madonna. The mirror flips the code. The shrine is the Black Madonna, and the only person that know who the Black Madonna is the chosen son. But he's chosen by genetics. And as the genetics become active, it allows him to see the mirror reflection. The Black Madonna is Claire Muhammad. Right? Yeah. She's the one who turned on Elijah's love light. which activated his abstract knowledge brilliance. But he's teaching Islam. But
Yes.
he's teaching it his way. He's not teaching it like they do in the Shia or in the Sunnah or in the Ahmadiyya. He's teaching it as in Elijah Muhammad's Islam. Why
Okay.
is he doing that?
I was just gonna
On this
ask.
land called the Americas, anybody can bring any teachings from anywhere in the world. But the teacher who teaches it has to put an element of himself in it or his tribal tradition in it in order for the other tribes to know that he's made it his own. He's under his own vine and fig tree, which means he's worshiping in his own house. People are allowed to come to his house and worship with him, but they can't tell him to change how he's worshiping because it's his house. It's a cultural phenomenon being applied to a foreign doctrine. It's the
Yeah.
same with Clarence 13X. He
Yeah.
couldn't stay with Elijah Muhammad because his knowledge had increased to the level that he knew the customs of this tribe is going to miss the chiefs that would come in born of this tribe.
Nation
The
of gods.
tobacco chiefs, the marijuana chiefs,
Mm.
the ayahuasca chiefs are not under the banner of the Nation of Islam because those practices are prohibited by their moral code.
Right. So we established a nation of gods.
The nation of gods and earths,
Yeah.
which mean the gods of the earth.
I think big following come out of that, isn't it?
Yeah. All of the major hip hop artists in the early days was saturated with the doctrine of the gods and the earths.
Yeah. They're the main ones I listen to as well, funny enough.
Right. So if you go back to why did Clarence 13 and Elijah Muhammad had a falling out? Because the boy became a man and struck out on his own. The father didn't want to leave his house because he was worried about if he actually trusted the data he gave him. Do I trust what I taught my son to become a man, to stand on his own so he don't need me no more? He finna show me. The same with the Hulan Mitchell, Yahweh ben Yahweh, right? Started off as I think John something X under Elijah Muhammad. But once you become a man that aspires to godhood, you have to do something to take you to the next level. So he took what he learned from Elijah Muhammad and became industrious in the Blue House under the Six as Yahweh ben Yahweh. Right? The government don't like it, so they start sending people to infiltrate and do dirt in the name of Yahweh ben Yahweh. So now when he catch two people, they can hit him with the RICO and shut them all down and take all his assets.
Yeah.
But it all keeps showing you the same repeat thing. If you look at the cycles, everywhere you find them, you find the same anomaly. It's always somebody that look like us that does not behaving like us.
Yeah.
Who
Malcolm
is these
X.
people and why are they even here? Where they come from? They look like us, but they don't, their character is not ours. Right? Because we don't believe in tearing down the leadership. We believe in the leadership building up everybody else to be leaders.
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned that because
You said did you have a little battery on it?
Tell them, hold on 1 minute.
like funny enough you mentioned that. I'm happy you mentioned about the word leaders, because I find that a lot of us searching for this one leader. Sometimes people, oh, we need another Malcolm X, we need another Dr. King. And this,
What's
what happens?
what's wrong with that? Why you ain't the next Martin Luther King? What's holding you back? What's the restrictions on you becoming the next Malcolm X? Why
Well, the
you ain't
leaders,
speaking up about the stuff you see being done wrong in the society so somebody can come along and fix it?
but
Even if you
what,
don't know how to fix the problem, keep
yeah,
bitching about it, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
yeah.
So don't let nobody come up and say we need another. Why you ain't being that?
Good point.
We ain't gonna never have another one if the next one is scared to step up.
Yeah,
That's what made them stand out, because they wasn't scared to step up
that's right.
and say something where others won't speak.
Yeah,
Speak up for people that you know been done wrong, and the other people can't see it yet, but it all come out in the end that you was right the whole time.
definitely.
Right?
Yeah,
Because they gave us all of the rules. We just don't know where they go and how to apply them. They threw them up in the air, hope you catch them.
and the times he did it in as well, way harder. Should be a lot easier now. But things, everything just seems like the values of no matter where we are in the world, because at the end of the day, I mean, we all go through the same, even though like different places might be slightly different. Like, doesn't matter with the UK, it'd be in America, it'd be in Africa. It's basically the same things going on of oppression, so divide and keeping us lowest. Because you could go to like South Africa, for example, and out there at the bottom of their own country, black people in South Africa, you could even look at North Africa one time. This was predominantly black peoples, the Arabs run there, and then other people, so it seems that we need this unify across the world. But when I say unify, a point you made before, just because someone looks like us, it doesn't mean that they are us. So it's like, is it the search for the like-minded people? And then how can you, figure out who are the
I'm like Malcolm
like-minded
X.
people?
Look, I'm like Malcolm.
Yeah, interesting. One of the final questions I wanted to speak on was Atlantis and Lemuria. Now, the first time I heard about Lemuria, looking into it, was a man called Delbert Blair, Dr. Delbert Blair,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some powerful information, basically. So, if you could give us a bit of information on Lemuria and Atlantis, the geographical locations, and what were they?
Yeah, first I want to mention Dr. Delbert Blair's information can be found at the Meta Center, Chicago. That's where he operated from. And he got lectures, he got products, diodes for neutralizing the electromagnetic currents and getting the toxic energies out. He got a lot of things over there to go look at: skin creams, monoatomic gold. So shout out to Dr. Delbert Blair. He a legend.
Definitely powerful information. Yeah. So, taking us to
So
Lemuria and Atlantis.
Lemuria was a contemporary city state with Atlantis. It's
Okay.
sunk in the Pacific. It's giant steps where Lemuria was once an island, but it sunk.
Now, when we say an
Right, it
island,
sunk.
because we have a
It
loads of
was.
islands now: Hawaii, Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and
This is unmistakable. It's right off of Japan
oh,
in the
Japan. Okay.
Pacific Ocean.
Oh, where the underwater pyramids were found.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the Lemuria proper. The Atlantis was the Americas. All of the stuff that they said was going on in Atlantis was going on in what we today call Mesoamerican legendary history.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So um the world history we've been given has been given to us as a control measure to limit our ability to think outside of time and space. These layers of civilization layer on top of each other because at the conclusion of ages or cycles, new cycles begin, old cycles end. New species of animals is popping up on a regular basis that science had no clue existed on the planet when they thought they had cataloged all of the animals. Right? They're discovering ancient fossil records of humans walking in footwear. right? So they have the record, but they don't understand what they're looking at. Civilizations rise and fall.
Yeah.
This is the final fall of the Babylonian continuum known as the Roman Empire, that was established on those three principles of blood magic, money magic, and sex magic, which justify a great rape campaign of the divine feminine and of the defiling of the children, right? In the cults, the pedophile priest cults is still continuously practicing this. They tell us we sinners because they have us unwittingly supporting these three conjures to keep us oppressed. We are willing participants in our own oppression through the allowance of ignorance to exist within the self. As long as you ignorant to what's being done to you, you don't like the condition you in, you can't change it. But as soon as you be aware what is being done to you, you can change your condition by changing the way you perceive information.
Are we going to get a major cycle?
Always look at, yeah,
a major
everything
cycle
must come from the first person perspective.
Yeah. So when we're dealing with cycles, time and space, like you said. So what's going to be the wake up call for humanity? Example, is an end goal to this, like where humanity awakens in large numbers as part of the cycle, or is it down to it's going to get worse, or is it light at the end of the tunnel?
You know, a lot of the people prophesy gloom and doom.
Yeah, it seems.
I don't see gloom and doom.
Okay. What do you see coming or in the future with all this crazy technology and everything that they've got now?
The technology, like med beds and healing chambers, regenerate lost limbs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's going to roll out at the Iowa World Fair in 2025.
Okay.
People's lives by visiting that fair is going to be changed in an instant when they realize what technology has been kept from us in order for this cycle to play out.
Yeah.
Now that the cycle is played out, the new age must begin, and all of the things that was concealed must be made known. So this is what they call the great apocalypse, the great revelation, the great renting of the veil, the unveiling of what was hidden so that you can see it in plain sight. That's what's coming next.
Sort of like we're going into a higher dimension where, like when I say a higher dimension, we're able to see into all the possibilities. Well, everything that's where the veil's being over us. Open, the eyes are wide open, are going to be.
So the consciousness is going to have to first receive a jolt to break it out of the old paradigm.
Yes, yeah.
Right. This is the revelation. This is what's going to be revealed. What it is going to take to jolt the people's psyche and let them see what's been being done to them and what's been done to protect them from it. And then by that revelation, it brings about an awakening of everything in my life has been a lie up until this point. And when the lie is revealed, guess what revealed along with it? The opposite end of the spectrum, the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Because now that well-dressed lie been stripped naked, and the naked truth comes in to put on truth clothes. Because the lie got caught.
Yeah. Interesting, brother. You know, I really appreciate your knowledge and I appreciate you coming on the show, you know. So I need to give you thanks anyway, Rod Hayes. Maybe sometime in the future we'll do this again, you know. But I give thanks to you, my brother. This is James Diboe, discovered and dedicated to original peoples. Peace, my brother. I understand you've got further things to do. But you know, we'll keep in touch, and we'll have this uploaded very shortly. But
Okay.
I'll give peace anyway, my brother.